What happens when one of Britain's most beloved actresses walks onto a daytime talk show expecting a friendly chat, only to be blindsided by a host who seems determined to tear her down on live television? It only took 35 seconds of Denise Welch's opening question for the entire interview to spiral into one of the most shocking exits in Loose Women history. The studio lights were bright that morning as Emma Thompson settled into the purple chair on the Loose Women set. She had arrived to discuss her latest film project, a passion piece about women's rights that she had spent years developing. The audience applauded warmly as she waved, her genuine smile lighting up the room. Sitting across from her were Denise Welch, Ruth Langsford, Janet Street Porter, and Kay Adams. The panel seemed friendly enough at first, but there was something in Denise's eyes that suggested this wouldn't be the easygoing conversation Emma had been promised. Denise leaned forward, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "So, Emma, lovely to have you here. Now, you've made quite a lot of money from your films over the years, haven't you? Must be nice sitting in your mansion while the rest of us struggle." The audience fell silent. Ruth shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Emma's smile faltered for just a moment before she composed herself. "Well, I've been fortunate in my career, yes. But I think what's important is what we do with our platform and how we use our voice too." "Your platform," Denise interrupted, her voice dripping with something that sounded like resentment. "Right. Your platform. Tell me, when was the last time you actually spoke to a normal person? Someone who has to worry about paying their bills?" Ruth tried to intervene. "Denise, I think perhaps we should let Emma." No, I want to know," Denise continued, waving Ruth off dismissively. "Because you come on here talking about women's rights and equality, but you live in a completely different world from the women watching this show. Don't you think that's a bit hypocritical?" Emma took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. "I don't think having success means you can't care about social issues. In fact, I'd argue it gives you more responsibility to speak up. My film is about ordinary women facing extraordinary circumstances, and I've spent months researching and speaking with—" "Oh, researching?" Denise scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. "So you spent a few weeks slumming it, did you? Talking to the poor people to make yourself feel better before going back to your five-star lifestyle?" Janet Street Porter leaned in, her voice sharp. "Actually, Denise, I think you're being incredibly unfair. Emma has been an advocate for—" "Oh, here we go," Denise snapped at Janet. "Always defending the celebrities, aren't you? That's your thing, isn't it, Janet? Sucking up to anyone with a bit of fame?" Janet's jaw dropped. "Excuse me? I'm simply trying to have a civilized conversation, which is apparently beyond your capabilities today." Kay Adams jumped in, trying to restore order. "Ladies, please. Emma, why don't you tell us about the actual film? I understand it's based on real events?" Emma nodded gratefully at Kay. "Yes, it's about a group of women in the 1970s who fought against workplace discrimination. They organized strikes, they faced incredible opposition, and they—" "1970s, Denise interrupted again, her tone mocking. "How convenient. Making a film about the past so you don't have to deal with real issues happening right now. What about the women suffering today? What are you actually doing for them?" Emma's patience was clearly wearing thin, but she remained polite. "The film speaks to issues that are still relevant today. The pay gap, workplace harassment, these things haven't gone away. And actually, 20% of the film's profits are going directly to women's charities. That 20%. Denise laughed bitterly. "How generous. You're going to keep 80% for yourself while pretending to be some kind of champion for women. That's rich." Ruth tried again, her voice firm. "Denise, this is getting out of hand. Emma is our guest and what?" Denise turned on Ruth. "We're supposed to just sit here and let her lecture us? Let her pretend she's one of us when she's absolutely not? I never claimed to be one of you," Emma said quietly, her voice steady but with an edge now. "I came here as a guest to talk about a project I care deeply about. I didn't come here to be attacked for being successful in my career." "Attacked?" Denise's voice rose. "You think this is an attack? This is reality, sweetheart. This is what real women deal with every day. Judgment. Criticism. But I suppose you wouldn't know much about that, would you? Not with everyone kissing the ground you walk on." The audience was completely silent now, watching in stunned disbelief. Janet shook, her head looking disgusted. "This is absolutely appalling, Denise. You've crossed every line." Denise whirled on Janet again. Oh, shut up, Janet. Nobody asked you. Actually, Emma interjected, her voice now carrying a strength that commanded attention. Janet is right. This is appalling. I agreed to come on this show in good faith. I was told this would be a conversation about my work, about important issues affecting women. Instead, I've been subjected to personal attacks from the moment I sat down. Personal attacks? Denise laughed harshly. I'm just asking questions that the people at home want answered. Why should we trust someone like you to tell stories about ordinary women when you're so far removed from that reality? Someone like me, Emma repeated, her eyes flashing. And what exactly does that mean? Someone who's worked hard? Someone who's been in this industry for decades, often facing sexism and ageism, and has still managed to build a career? Yes, I've been fortunate. Yes, I've been successful. But I've also used my position to advocate for others, to shine a light on important issues, to give opportunities to women who are just starting out in this industry. Kay nodded vigorously. That's absolutely true. Emma has been a mentor to countless young actresses and has always been vocal about women's representation in film. Oh, please. Denise waved her hand dismissively. That's just PR nonsense. Actions speak louder than words, and your actions show that you're quite happy living your privileged life while looking down on the rest of us. Looking down? Emma's voice remained controlled, but the hurt was evident. I have never looked down on anyone. I come from a working-class background myself. My father was an actor, yes, but we weren't wealthy. I worked my way up through theater, through small roles, through years of auditions and rejections. I know what struggle looks like. That was decades ago, Denise shot back. You've forgotten what it's like. You've been living in your bubble for so long that you've lost touch with reality. Ruth had had enough. Denise, I really must insist that you stop this. This is not what this show is about. We're supposed to be having a discussion, not what? Denise turned on Ruth, her voice venomous. Not holding people accountable, not asking the tough questions, that's what journalism is, Ruth. Maybe you've forgotten that. This isn't journalism, Janet interjected sharply. This is a hatchet job. You clearly had some kind of agenda from the beginning, and frankly, it's embarrassing to be sitting here watching you behave this way. An agenda? Denise's laugh was bitter. The only agenda I have is honesty. I'm tired of celebrities coming on here, using our platform to promote their projects, pretending to care about issues while doing nothing substantial. Emma leaned forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. You know absolutely nothing about what I do or don't do. You've made assumptions based on what? Your own bitterness? Your own resentments? I donate regularly to multiple charities. I volunteer my time. I use my name to draw attention to causes that desperately need it. But I don't broadcast every good deed because I don't do it for praise. I do it because it's the right thing to do. How convenient that we're just supposed to take your word for it, Denise sneered. Kay spoke up, her voice urgent. Actually, Denise, I happen to know for a fact that Emma has been involved with several charities for years. She's on the board of 2 organizations that support women escaping domestic violence. She's funded scholarships for young women studying film. These aren't secrets. They're just not things she advertises because she's not doing it for attention. Denise's face flushed. Well, good for her. But that doesn't change the fact that she's part of a system that's fundamentally broken. Hollywood elite, patting themselves on. The back while the world burns. The world burns, Emma repeated slowly, her voice dangerously quiet now. And what exactly are you doing about it, Denise? Other than sitting here in your studio, attacking someone who's actually trying to make a difference? You talk about tough questions and journalism, but all I've heard is personal attacks disguised as concern for ordinary people, the audience murmured in agreement. Ruth nodded slightly. Janet crossed her arms, watching Denise with undisguised contempt. Denise's face grew redder. How dare you? I have every right to question you. You come on our show. Your show? Emma's voice rose for the first time. This isn't your show, Denise. This is a panel show. There are 4 other people sitting here, and from what I can see, 3 of them are absolutely mortified by your behavior. I'm not mortified, Denise snapped. I'm doing my job. Your job is to bully guests? Emma's eyes were blazing now. Your job is to create conflict for ratings? Because that's what this is, isn't it? You decided before I even walked in here that you were going to make this confrontational. You don't care about my film. You don't care about women's rights. You care about creating a moment, and you've chosen to do it at my expense. That's ridiculous. Denise protested, but her voice lacked conviction now. Janet jumped in, her voice cutting. It's not ridiculous at all. It's obvious. You've been antagonistic from the very first question. You haven't let Emma finish a single sentence without interrupting or mocking her. This is unprofessional and, frankly, cruel. Ruth nodded. I have to agree. Emma, I'm so sorry. This is not what we intended. Don't apologize for me, Denise interjected angrily. I'm not sorry. Someone needs to call out this hypocrisy. What hypocrisy? Emma's voice was sharp now. Please, enlighten me. What have I said that's hypocritical? I came here to talk about a film that highlights women's struggles and triumphs. I've been open about my own journey, my own beliefs. You're the one who's been dishonest, Denise. You pretended this would be a friendly interview, and instead you've spent the entire time trying to tear me down. Kay shook her head sadly. This is so disappointing. Emma is one of the most respected actresses in Britain, someone who's actually walked the walk when it comes to supporting women in the industry. And this is how we treat her? Respected? Denise spat the word. Respected by who? By other wealthy celebrities? By the industry that protects its own? What about being respected by ordinary people? I think you'll find that ordinary people do respect Emma, Janet said coldly. Unlike you, apparently. The audience has been completely silent during your tirade, which should tell you something. As if on cue, a few audience members began to clap for Emma. The applause grew, filling the studio. Emma sat still, her eyes glistening slightly, clearly. Moved, but also clearly hurt. Denise looked around, seeming surprised by the audience's reaction. Oh, of course. Take her side. That's typical. There are no sides, Ruth said firmly. There's just basic human decency, which you seem to have abandoned today. Emma stood up slowly, removing her microphone with steady hands. I think it's clear that this interview is over. I came here with respect and openness, and I've been met with nothing but hostility and contempt. I won't sit here and continue to be insulted. Oh, running away, Denise said mockingly. How brave. Emma turned to face her directly, her voice quiet but powerful. There's a difference between running away and refusing to participate in toxicity. You've spent this entire interview trying to diminish me, to make me feel small, to somehow prove that success equals moral failure. But I won't accept that narrative. I've worked hard. I've tried to be a good person. I've made mistakes, I'm sure, but I've also tried to do good in the world. And I don't need to justify that to you or anyone else. She turned to Ruth, Kay, and Janet. Thank you for trying to maintain some civility. I appreciate it. Ruth stood up as well. Emma, please. I'm so sorry about this. This isn't… I know, Emma said gently. I know this isn't what you wanted. But I can't stay. I won't give this, she gestured vaguely at Denise, any more of my time or energy. Denise leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed. Fine, leave. Proves my point, doesn't it? Can't handle a little criticism. Criticism? Janet's voice was incredulous. Is that what you think this was? This was a personal vendetta disguised as an interview. You should be ashamed. Emma walked toward the edge of the set, the audience applauding louder now, many standing. She paused at the stairs, turning back one more time. You know what the saddest part of this is? Emma's voice carried across the studio. We're supposed to be lifting each other up. Women supporting women. That's what this show claims to be about, isn't it? But instead, you've used this platform to attack another woman for daring to be successful. What kind of message does that send? Denise opened her mouth to respond, but Kay cut her off. She's absolutely right. This has been shameful. Emma nodded once, then descended the stairs and walked off the set. The audience continued to applaud, several people calling out words of support. The remaining panelists sat in uncomfortable silence, Denise alone in her defiance while the others looked anywhere but at her. Ruth turned to the camera, her professional mask barely concealing her distress. We'll be right back after this break. As the cameras cut away, Janet immediately turned on Denise. What on earth was that? What were you thinking? I was thinking someone needed to ask real questions, Denise replied, but her voice wavered slightly. Real questions? Ruth's voice was sharp. Those weren't questions. That was an ambush. You embarrassed this show, you embarrassed us, and you treated a guest appallingly. Kay added quietly. Emma Thompson is a dame. She's respected worldwide. She's done incredible work, both in her career and in advocacy. And you just drove her off our set." "Maybe she deserved it," Denise muttered, but even she didn't sound convinced anymore. Janet stood up, removing her own microphone. "I'm not sitting through the rest of this show. I won't be associated with what just happened here." "Janet, wait," Ruth called out. But Janet was already walking away. The studio fell into chaos. Producers rushed onto the set, talking urgently to Ruth and Kay. Denise sat alone in her chair, still defiant but noticeably isolated. The audience buzzed with shocked conversation, many shaking their heads in disbelief at what they had just witnessed. In the green room, Emma sat quietly, her assistant beside her offering water. She wasn't crying, but her hands shook slightly as she held the glass. "I should have handled that better," she said quietly. "No," her assistant said firmly. "You handled it perfectly. You tried to be professional. You tried to have a conversation, and when it became clear that wasn't possible, you left with dignity. That's all anyone could ask." Emma nodded slowly. "I just don't understand why she was so angry. What did I do to deserve that?" "Nothing," her assistant assured her. "You did nothing wrong. That was about her, not you." Back on the set, Ruth was having a heated conversation with the producers. "We can't continue the show as if nothing happened. Our guest just walked off because of how she was treated." "We'll issue a statement," one producer said nervously. "A statement?" Ruth's voice rose. "We need more than a statement. We need to address what happened, acknowledge that it was wrong." Kay nodded her agreement. "If we don't, we're complicit." The audience saw everything. Twitter is probably exploding right now. Denise finally spoke, her voice defensive. "I was just doing what this show is supposed to do. Having difficult conversations." "There's a difference between difficult conversations and personal attacks," Ruth said coldly. "And you crossed that line repeatedly." The break ended and the cameras came back on. Ruth and Kay sat alone on the panel now, both Denise and Janet having been asked to leave the set. Ruth's face was composed, but the strain was evident. "We need to address what just happened," Ruth began, her voice steady. "Our guest, Emma Thompson, has left the show. The conversation became heated and uncomfortable, and we want to acknowledge that what you witnessed was not reflective of the values this show stands for." Kay added, "We pride ourselves on having open and honest discussions, but always with respect. That respect was missing today, and we apologize to Emma and to our viewers." Ruth continued, "We'll be taking a hard look at what happened here today and making sure it doesn't happen again. This show is about women supporting women, having real conversations, but never at the expense of basic human kindness." The audience applauded, many nodding their approval of the acknowledgement. Ruth and Kay finished the show with visible discomfort, rushing through the remaining segments with none of their usual warmth. Backstage, Emma prepared to leave the building. Several staff members approached her, apologizing profusely. She graciously accepted their apologies, making it clear she didn't blame them. "These things happen," she said quietly, though her eyes told a different story. "But I hope the show learns from this. No one should be treated that way, celebrity or not." As she walked to her car, her phone began buzzing with messages of support. Fellow actors, directors, friends, and fans all reaching out, having seen clips already circulating online. The support was overwhelming, but it didn't quite erase the sting of what had happened. She sat in the car for a moment before driving away, taking a deep breath. "Well," she said to her assistant, "that certainly didn't go as planned." "No," her assistant agreed, "but you handled it with more grace than most people would have. You stood up for yourself without stooping to her level." Emma nodded, starting the car. "I just hope it doesn't overshadow the film. That's what matters." The stories we're telling, the women we're representing, not this drama. The film will speak for itself, her assistant assured her. "And I think people will respect how you handled yourself today." As they drove away from the studio, Emma allowed herself a small smile. It had been ugly, uncomfortable, and hurtful, but she had maintained her dignity, she had stood her ground, and she had walked away rather than engage in the toxicity. Inside the studio, the aftermath continued. Producers huddled in offices discussing damage control. Social media exploded with reactions, overwhelmingly supportive of Emma and critical of Denise's behavior. The clip of Emma's departure, her final words about women supporting women, went viral within hours. Ruth and Kay sat together after the show ended, both exhausted and upset. "I can't believe that happened," Kay said quietly. In all my years on this show, I've never seen anything like that. Neither have I, Ruth agreed. And I hope I never do again. Emma Thompson is a class act. She didn't deserve that treatment. Denise went too far, Kay said. Way too far. I don't know what was driving that anger, but it was completely inappropriate. Ruth nodded. The question now is what happens next? How do we move forward from this? With accountability, Kay said firmly, and with a commitment to never let something like that happen again. We have a responsibility to our guests and to our audience to maintain standards of respect and decency. The studio slowly emptied as the day came to an end. The purple chairs sat vacant on the set, silent witnesses to the confrontation that had unfolded. Tomorrow would bring more conversations, more decisions, more fallout. But for now, the damage was done, and the image of Emma Thompson walking away with dignity while facing such hostility would remain etched in the memories of everyone who witnessed it.